Okay, what do people think this map represents? Any guesses?
A certain section of the city.
All right. What do you think?
I think I saw this recently. Was it the one where diseases in the water?
Good guess. Anybody else care to speculate, for example, what these X's are or what these dots are? All right, so this is part of London. And this is not modern day London. This is London in the 1820s. And this is a map drawn by a doctor named John Snow, no relation to the Game of Thrones character. And yeah, he was living in this part of London. I forget what this neighborhood is called, but he was treating a lot of cases of a disease called cholera. Today we know that cholera is bacterium, Vibrio cholera, and that it lives in water, like in water that's contaminated by feces, by poop. But back then they didn't know that. They didn't quite have germ theory yet. They had to wait a couple more decades for Louis Pasteur to say, I think there's these germs causing it, and we can kill them by pasteurizing it. We can heat things up and kill the germs and prevent the spread of disease. You want to say something? Yeah, go ahead. So they didn't tie it to a bacterium, but they were starting to kind of develop an understanding of diseases. And so they're treating cholera. As far as I know, the treatment back then was basically to give somebody lots of water, because they dehydrate, they lose a lot of water. It's a very unpleasant disease. Don't ever get cholera. But he noticed that a lot of his patients were coming from the same neighborhood, and he kind of wondered why that was. So he decided to make a map. He asked each patient where they lived, put a dot down there, and built up kind of a map of cases. He says, okay, so these cases are clustered around a certain area, and I wonder what that means, what's in that area. And he had a hunch that it was something people got through their water. So he mapped all the wells, and said, here's a pump that people would go and fill the water that they needed for the day, the baths and cooking water and water to drink. And there's a few all over. And people might go to one or another just depending on which one they happen to be closest to. But mostly he thought people would go to the ones closest to their house. And he saw that right in the center of this cluster of these cholera cases was one pump on Broad Street. Now, he had a hypothesis. He said, okay, I think that this outbreak of cholera was caused by something in the water at this particular pump. Now, what way do you think he might go about testing if this hypothesis is at all true? Okay, so he might take a sample of the water. But remember, they don't know what a bacterium is. I guess some small things have been observed under a microscope. A microscope had already been invented by a Dutch person, von Leeuwenhoek, and an English person, Robert Hooke. And they observed little animals under the microscope. They called them animal peels. But they didn't necessarily know that that's what caused disease. So he might look at the water, and maybe he would figure that out. What's another way that he could say, all right, this water is causing this disease? So he figured, well, if it's causing the disease, and I take it away, and the disease stops, well, that will tell you right there, it must be causing a disease. So without asking anybody's permission, he figured, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, and if it works out, then it'll prove my idea. He just went ahead to Broad Street, and he just vandalized the pump. He just took the handle off, people couldn't use it, but there were no new outbreaks of cholera. The disease progression stopped. And so he was able to take this map to the local authorities and say, hey, I think cholera is caused by water, and I think, every time there's a cholera outbreak, we need to make sure that the water isn't getting contaminated. I think they later, if I remember the story right, did look in the well and find some sort of dead animal that was causing it. So this goes to show just how old visualization is. we've been doing this for a long time.